Hi YouTube, Darth here. This is Over Your Shoulder, a series where I follow unsuspecting players and give what is usually unsolicited commentary. Today's victim is community member Dark Shadow, level 129 player with a definite preference for the infantry game. As I follow Dark Shadow today, I'll talk about all the good things, bad things, and things I might do differently. Be sure to keep an eye out for the end of this episode as there is a surprise ending. With that in mind, let's look over Dark Shadow's shoulder. Alright, so after a short intro, it looks like we are getting on the ground with Dark Shadow, who has got the G36 with a coyote, green laser, heavy barrel, and potato grip. This is the second time we've seen this weapon in the last week, and I do like the heavy barrel and potato grip combination. But I don't think it's the right weapon for this garage, as it is usually a close quarters situation. If you're going to use it in a longer range role, I would probably prefer a 3-4x scope or perhaps a 1x hollow sight. The coyote just seems strange on a weapon that's set up for a longer range engagement. But whatever floats your boat. So right now it looks like we are currently on the Chinese team, and we spawned on the western side of this map. With the garage secured, it looks like we're going and hanging out here on top to get a little bit of use out of that long-range potential of the G36. This tends to be everybody's favorite camping spot, so I don't like to stay up here for too terribly long. Kind of a risky play here on Sunken Dragon to try and peek this top without being a sniper. Pretty much every 64-player match I see devolves into a sniping war between snipers on top of this garage and the snipers in the Sunken Dragon. Get a little tap fire at Dark Shadow there. I think with the potato grip, it probably would have been a better idea to let off a few more rounds. The G36 has one of the lowest spread per shot increases of the carbines, and it's kind of good to get use out of that weapon. And as you saw there's another danger of lingering too long on that rooftop, as you have the helicopter that comes along at a pretty regular interval from either side. Taking a cut here because I think Dark Shadow took a poop break there or something. But anyways, moving on. Let's go to third person because that's starting to drive me crazy. So big picture here, not really affecting the outcome of the game much by hanging out on top of this rooftop. You don't have any firepower and you're definitely not pushing any flags. And you get taken out by helicopters pretty frequently. Back on the ground and back down. So it's always worth taking a spare moment to take a look around at where you're spawning at and what kind of danger your squad mates are in. Now we're getting a look at his secondary for the first time, and it looks like he's rocking a scoped M1911. In this case, you already have a sniper rifle, so it probably would have been a better choice. Misses the shot on an enemy there, misses the second one, and manages to finally come up with his ass. But as I was saying, it's probably a good choice to pick a secondary that more fits what your primary is. So if you have a long-range weapon like the G90 like he has here, you probably want to pick something that's a little bit better closer up. Dark Shadow drops a beacon so his squad can spawn back in here. I think if you were trying to defend this, you might want to pick something like a Tugs or something else as well for your other gadget. Got some flashbang action going on here. Let's see, peek in this corner to see if he blinded the guy, and he's going to fall victim to that C4 right there, and kaboom! Great defensive use of C4 by the enemy there. Never really want to peek something that you know your enemy might be looking. Misses his first shot there. I probably wouldn't go for the follow-up in case they're both looking. They're not paying attention. That guy's down, and he gets an easy headshot on Agent Smith. Whenever I miss a shot on an enemy that's coming for me, I usually don't try to take the shot again, because at that point it's just a coin flip, and sometimes you lose. Kind of a rough round so far for Dark Shadow. He really hasn't been able to get much going. And I think this partly comes down to choices being made here. As a recon in here, I would probably be running a Tugs with some kind of close quarter weapon like an ACWR or perhaps an MTAR. Getting shot up from the left here needs to react quickly and just doesn't catch it in time. Definitely a rough round so far for Dark Shadow, and he spawns in here on his beacon and immediately gets shot down. In that case, the enemy was probably staring at his beacon. The lesson to take away from there would probably be to put your beacons in a more discreet location. Anyway, getting back to the action, Dark Shadow is still using his M1911 and his G90. Whenever you spawn, try to take an assessment of what's going on the map and try to think about what your team needs at the current situation. Right now, it looks like the US team is up by a fairly healthy amount. They're pushing a couple of flags, and the Chinese team is not really having a lot of luck ejecting them out of Delta. So in this case, it would probably be a better idea to pick up something that's more immediately helpful, like a CQB weapon. Dark Shadow sees that equipment there and takes it out. Instead, I might have just gone and knifed it so you didn't put yourself on the minimap. Now the enemy knows where to be looking for enemies. A particularly careful recon will be looking for their equipment when it's destroyed and will know that there's enemies there. As you just saw, that recon came looking for his equipment, misses 2 shots on him, and finally comes up with a headshot. So it's a dangerous game when you draw attention to the minimap like that. You can have enemies in more than one come and find you and take you out rather quickly. Fortunately for Dark Shadow, that guy was off of his game. In any case, it looks like the Chinese team has finally managed to push the enemy off of Delta and is starting to take this map back with 4 points to none. Great use of the minimap and flashbangs here. He turned his head so he wouldn't get blinded, and he managed to come up with an easy kill there on Agent Smith again. Maybe going to the well one too many times here, starts getting shot from the back, takes cover behind these cement blocks. Lines a quick shot up and gets a hit on the enemy's ass. I think right here, rather than opening myself up to either side of those enemies, I'd probably be just trying to peek from those cement pillars next to me. That way, rather than having to shift back and forth like he was, you can easily just cover one avenue of approach. From From the minimap, we can still see that the US team is infesting this parking garage. This is one of those situations where tugs really would come in handy in order to show you all their movements so you can make sure that you take out that last guy and you can't just plant another spawn beacon like that. I find that the parking garage on Sunken Dragon and on Flood Zone are actually really hard to get enemies out of once they're inside of, simply because they can hide in so many places and it's really easy for teammates to spawn on one another. And that's why I keep recommending the tugs. I really think it's one of the best defensive pieces of equipment in the game. Finally, Dark Shadow is able to get some use out of that firepower he has with him and gets a headshot on Matty Growl. But as we can see, there are still plenty of enemies here on this point. I think something with a little bit more close range would have been useful. Good on Dark Shadow seeing that there was an enemy on his minimap and making sure that he wasn't here up top. Now you know he's down below, so I think I might be a little bit paranoid he was coming for me. Currently facing off with 2 assaults trying to take pot shots from across the way. Probably not too much to worry about, comes up with that one kill. Other than a few circumstances here on the top of the roof, this JNG really is not doing him a whole lot of favors. And I see now that he has that straight pull bolt, but he's not really getting a whole lot of use out of it since he keeps going out of his scope every time he takes a shot. The advantage of that straight pull bolt is you can continue to take his shots while looking down scope. This way you don't lose your target as easily. If you're not going to do that, you might as well use the bipod, and catches the guy in here on the minimap and takes him out with the M1911. Could have chosen any weapon for that because he wasn't paying attention at all. So for me, right now, my priorities on this map would be to clear the rest of the enemies out of Delta and go find somewhere else on the map to tackle. If you're always playing defensive and you're relying on your teammates to capture points, you're not going to win a whole lot of games. As the Chinese team on this map, it's important to keep the US team out of this garage because they can so easily get in here and just stay in here and keep moving the point back and forth the entire round. Strategically speaking, on Sunken Dragon, Delta is probably the most important point on the entire map, and the garage is generally important on any game mode. And Dark Shadow's taking a terrible risk here by opening himself up to fire from the Sunken Dragon. As you saw, he hopped up, so he's making himself a very easy to spot target on the top of the roof. But he sees that the US team has re-infested Delta and is down below, so he's going to take a look, so good job of keeping the minimap awareness alive. So Dark Shadow is running with an interesting trade-off here on his M1911. That scope gives him long-range potential, and sorry again Agent Smith, you appear to be punching bag for Dark Shadow. And the trade-off is, with that laser sight, you've got the ability to do hipfire and have a better close-range weapon. Still, I think the JNG is a mistake for the garage simply because you're going to lose these close-range encounters just like that. So when I'm having a bad game and I'm starting to get frustrated, generally what I'll do is I'll try to figure out what am I doing that is perhaps the wrong choice here. I go in order and I start thinking, okay, am I spawning in the wrong places? Do I need to think about where I'm spawning very carefully because I can easily get frustrated constantly hitting my head into the same thing over and over again. And Dark Shadow catches an entire squad here just not paying attention at all, covers his reload kinda nicely, almost dead, and gets a little bit of luck here with a teammate showing up to help save the day on that one. But as I was saying about bad games, the things I typically look at in order are the spawn locations like I had mentioned, and then I start looking at my loadout. What do I have in my loadout that is helping me? What do I have in my loadout that's not helping me? What is the enemy constantly beating me with? This is that snapshot on the helicopter and the kind of things that you need to be asking yourself, hey, if I need to take out helicopters, should I be running Engineer right now? Perhaps with a CQB weapon and maybe a Stinger? Because you're always playing rock, paper, scissors against your enemies and what they are bringing to the battle. And maybe you've noticed this sometimes where you'll start doing really well on a map to begin with, and then as the enemy changes their strategy, you start slacking off and dying a whole lot more. And it's really hard to think your way through frustration. But that's where experience really is invaluable. You can start drawing on those things that have helped you in the past. But anyway, more on Dark Shadow. With this garage secured, he really needs to be thinking about the other points on the map that the US team has taken. The match is still close, but Charlie's been in the hands of the Americans for pretty much the entire round. My general philosophy when thinking about a map is secure my point, move on to the next. Secure that point, move on to the next. As long as I'm pressuring the enemy team, they constantly have to be in a reactionary state where I can continue attacking and not get my face sniped off. Dark Shadow is definitely getting use out of his personal spawn beacon there, so I think one problem to note is he always continues to go back to the same spot and try to snipe some more. As a recon sniper, you want to snipe, relocate, because you're going to have people come back and look for you, just like Dark Shadow went looking for those guys by looking in the same window again. In the best case, what do you have? You have a snipe-a-thon here where you're fighting against 2 snipers that know exactly where you are, and one of them's going to come up with the shot. Instead, why not shoot at them from somewhere expected and come up with an easier kill? In this situation, you're simply relying on your ability to out-twitch your enemy. Good shot on him there, but at the same time, probably smarter shots could have been made. You don't really know how good the sniper is that's shooting at you until they've taken their shot. So why even give them that possibility that they could out-snipe you? Since you can respawn in this game and you can typically see where your enemies are, why not play a game of chess with them and instead outsmart them before the game even starts? The first place the enemy is going to look for you is where you were when you killed them. If you're still there when they come looking for you, you've made their job so much easier. Dark Shadow misses that shot there, waited a little bit too long and pulls the trigger late. Takes a guess at where his enemy might be, misses that one, and reacquires, misses the second shot, misses the third shot, gives up on that target, continues shooting at another one. It's a little bit more of an easy shot, stays on the rooftop too long, gets killed by a helicopter. And hence why I keep saying it's not a good idea to stay on that rooftop. Spawn on the squad mate there, going to try to get some action here at Bravo. Checking the balconies, comes up with an enemy here, does a lot of tap firing. If you're going to do that much tap firing with the G36, you might actually be better served by a folding or angled grip that gives you a little bit better shot multiplier on that first shot recoil. Possibly looking around here to see if we can see some more enemies. I'd probably take that laser sight off if that's the case so you don't expose yourself. Doing a good job of setting up your beacon here so you can come back. And like the parking garage, this is one of those points that's really hard to get the enemy team out of if they manage to get themselves inside of. See at least one enemy here. I'd probably go below the waves and try to figure out where he went. You can continue to cap the point below the waves, and I've actually caught a fair number of enemies just hanging out on the surface looking for me. And then they've been pulled under by my knife like a shark. Takes out the one enemy you can see there, but you make yourself really available to the enemies on the balcony by swimming around on top. Spawning on a teammate's beacon, you can really see the benefit of having a well-placed, out-of-the-way beacon. A well-placed beacon lets you be a plague to the enemy team for the entire match. And we saw that enemy on the balcony. I think I would have taken my shots from above rather than below because you don't have to worry about their cover in that case, and he gets taken out by that enemy. Jumping in on the squad mate, it looks like we are slowly draining away the lake here. Catches the last few hit points on Tehu and is looking towards the entrance points for the spawn on this map. He sees that there's guys on the mini-map, does a quick peek to see if he can see him, doesn't manage to take that guy out quick enough and gets taken out himself. So the mistake made there was in just not finding enough cover to defend himself from enemies spawning. And now he's already taken half his life in damage and he knows he's on the mini-map, so he has to play defensively here. Tries to outplay the guy just shooting at him, mistakes him for the wrong enemy and gets taken out. So we've arrived at what is the end for Dark Shadow. This is a first for Over Your Shoulder.
Rage quit.
Well, not every match is your best match, and I think there's a lot to be learned from even my worst matches. For Dark Shadow, I definitely work on considering what weapons might be best in certain circumstances. You did a really good job of using your minimap and flashbangs to take surprise advantage over your enemy. Combine that with weapons that produce at close range and you probably would have done a lot better on this map. If you find yourself getting surprised and killed by enemies frequently, definitely consider making use of the sensor balls and tugs so you have a heads up, especially on compact areas like on Sunken Dragon. Finally, definitely consider getting in on flags more frequently and covering yourself while you do so. That's it for this episode of Over Your Shoulder. If you'd like to be featured in a future episode, be sure to contact me with your Battlelog information. If you found this video insightful or interesting, please be sure to leave a like before you go. If you're new around here, take a look at my channel and please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, YouTube.